worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. So Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
It's Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for a new episode of the It's Canon podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things geek, the podcast where we talk about all things nerd, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything, because as the title of the show says, it's all in canon. I'm your host, I'm Boris, and I'm joined by Phil.
Folks, you're in for a treat because we've been working on this episode for the full week. Like, all effort.
Yes.
I think we're in for another fun one, everyone. So Happy New Year indeed.
Yep, Happy New Year. I wasn't here last week because the gremlins got in all the tech yet again, but things are looking a little better. A little nervous this afternoon because things did crash, but we're here, we're recording, I'm happy, and here we are, man. Yeah, Happy New Year to you. We've barely really spoken. Actually, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we're talking this year.
Yeah, it's hard. You're right. Even our messages back and forth, they're pretty minimal lately. There's just been so much going on and in all of our lives, I guess. And yeah, so Happy New Year to you, my friend, and Merry Christmas and all that happy holidays stuff. And to our listeners as well, even though we've said it before, you just can't get too much good vibes, you know?
Exactly, especially nowadays when things are just like so tough, especially here in Ontario. For those people who don't live in Ontario, we're essentially back in a version of a lockdown. Restaurants are closed for indoor dining because there's nothing like a beautiful romantic dinner in the middle of the winter when it's minus 10 to 15 Celsius. Nothing says I love you like purple nipples.
Yeah, like let's hit the patio, have a cold one and a cold one.
Yep.
So we don't even need a fridge. We can just keep it in the snowbank.
Yep, exactly. The natural freezer, as people like to call it. But yeah, no, man, things are crazy here in Ontario. But it is what it is. You got to make the best of it. I'm not even going to get into it. There's no point. You know what we're going to say. But man, it's been a crazy week, Phil. It has been an insane week. Getting back to work was crazy. The pandemic and the worker shortage is starting to show itself with some customers. So that's been fun and crazy to deal with. And then, on the other side, on my podcasting side, trying to make plans with this show. The three of us need to sit down and kind of talk about what a couple things. But, we do have some episodes that we want to do. For those of you who haven't noticed, Tyler isn't here. He's dealing with some stuff. He's dealing with a sick person. I hope she feels better. But we are delaying the best and worst of 2021 again, because it's one of those episodes that I want the three of us to be around for. So that's where Phil's joke comes into play, because we have done zero prep. Hence me talking the way that I'm talking, because I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next. So as I talk, I'm thinking about what's to come. That's literally what I'm doing right now. I'm vamping for time, vamping for material, because Phil, I literally have done zero prep. outside of the episode that we were supposed to have, which was going to be a fun episode. We even had someone coming on, and but like I was saying, it's just been super crazy going back to work, and then on the podcast side of stuff, all the wrestling stuff. Yeah, so I've kind of taken second chair to Sunday night's main event, the main radio show. So kind of helped with that, getting it out to the radio stations and all that fun stuff, making sure that everything was updated properly internally, the websites, the Patreon, the Podbean, and everything in between. But everything is looking good, and more of that. But super busy there. I did get some notes, and that from people that I know that listen to this show. So thank you for tuning in to Sunday night's main event. Really means a lot. And I've always said this, like the comic book world, the geek world, and the wrestling world kind of have a lot of crossover. So it just means a lot that, people are finding me on other means. And hey, if you're listening to this show because of the wrestling stuff, because of Sunday night's main event, thank you again. And it just again, everyone who listens to the show means a lot, because like I've always said, Phil, this has been nothing more than geek therapy for us when the pandemic started.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, you can take a breath, my friend. I can vamp for you for a little bit. But I know the feeling, because last week I was sitting in that chair, not literally, but figuratively. And it's kind of like, okay, I guess I'm going into host mode now. And I guess we're going to need to figure out what the topics are going to be. So lo and behold, we determined, like Boris, being Boris, says, why don't you talk about the book of Boba Fett? And I'm like, yeah, man, I could do some book of Boba Fett. And then Tyler says, haven't watched it yet. And I'm just like,
that's when you can literally tell Boris has exited the chat. I saw that message and I'm like, well, good luck, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, Tyler, you can go watch it. You have like 27 minutes. And that's what we did. So I know the feeling, but yes, to the point of the crowds and everything, and the cross-pollination that happens between the podcasts and the different things. Hey, everyone's welcome aboard the geek therapy train, that's for sure. I know that it's something that I've come to rely on, and not only in just some of the content that we cover, but also some of our arrival points on certain things really help manufacture a point of view for me on, there's just so much stuff, and this pandemic is, here we are back in it, like you said, but the content is out there, man. Like Disney and HBO and everybody's just making a lot of stuff, and they're trying things. And I guess that's where we kind of arrived at with Matrix Resurrections last week. They tried something. Was it successful? I don't think so.
I don't think so in the grand scheme of things. I haven't given my thoughts on the movie. But, I kind of align with what you and Tyler were talking about, because unlike you two, when I'm away from this show, well, you're never away from this show, but unlike Tyler, when I'm away from this show, I actually do listen back. Mainly, to be 100% honest, the only reason I listen back is because I edit the fucking thing for you guys. But I do align my thoughts with you guys where, there were some stuff that I liked about the movie, but there was a lot that just didn't make sense. There was a lot that kind of made you go cringe. There was a lot that made you go, I think that it was a little too meta, especially for this day and age. Especially as, funny I said meta, but, as the world of VR and all this and that and Second Life becomes more realistic, I think there were a few things that, I don't know, it just didn't work out, for lack of a better term.
I firmly believe I need to watch it again to really have an opinion, but I still have a bad taste in my mouth. And I need to go into that viewing without the bad taste, like being able to digest all the things that I had issues with and whatnot, and just be at peace with them so I can appreciate it maybe on another level. Kind of like what I had to do with The Last Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, I can watch a crap out of that movie now, but I'm over certain things. I'm just not going to get upset about certain things. I'm just going to accept them for what they are. And I think that that's where this movie is always going to couch itself, because I pretty much feel like they came out and said this week it lost so much money for HBO that they're just like, Warner Brothers is like, no, there is no 5.
Yeah.
Like, we're parking that donkey for a long while.
Yep.
So be it. You know, I think Tyler brought up some good points too, in that Keanu Reeves just wasn't ready to shoot an action Matrix movie. So they glossed over a lot of stuff as far as him performing certain things, like doing certain things, interacting certain ways on screen. So I need to watch it again with all that in mind.
I do too. When I watched it was a very weird week. A lot was going on. I'm just like, I kind of threw it on for the sake of having something on, right? But I kind of want to give it that second chance, a second go around, and see if I like it a little more. Which I think, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I will. I don't know if I won't. I don't know if I will actually watch it again. But it's for sure something that kind of I didn't give it the chance that I should have. But so that's The Matrix. Enough lallygagging there. So another thing that you guys were talking about was Book of Boba Fett, episode 1. That was a thing. We'll talk about episode 2 a little later. But man, there's just been so much consumption from my end. It's been crazy. I watched that Disney movie Encanto.
Oh yeah, how was that? I heard good things
about
it.
It's a Disney movie. It's a Disney Pixar animation movie. It's a lot of fun. It can tug on your heartstrings a little bit. Especially with the dynamics of the family, which is a Latino family. I kind of made a connection with it.
Yeah,
there were a lot of exactly. It was a fun movie, good movie, beautiful, like just beautiful looking, tons of color, super colorful, super fun. It was a fun movie. The music was actually really good. But it was just one of those movies like, I think that if you should just watch it. It's Disney, it's Pixar, it's fun. It's good. It's colorful. It's not like heavy viewing, which is exactly what you need nowadays. At some point, so it's a pretty good movie.
I'm fully on board with giving it a chance. Like, I have no issue with films like that. You know me. I pretty much watch an awful lot of stuff, or at least I give it a try. And I've always enjoyed the Disney brand of that kind of stuff. Like, I had a little bit of difficulty with Raya and the Dragon. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. It didn't hit well with me, but Soul and all that other stuff they were all great. Like, I've pretty much loved most of what Pixar touches.
Yeah, same here. There's the obvious few exceptions. Sometimes things just aren't made for us. But it's just it was what it was. But
it was what it was. What can you say?
Exactly, it was.
But there's so much stuff. I to be honest, like, you know me, life of a Star Wars geek, right? We'll get to it, but I gotta say, I watched Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2 probably about 5 times this week.
Really?
And we're not talking 5 times because I wanted to deconstruct it for the show. We're talking 5 times because I just wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to put it on again, the 55-inch 4K TV with the speakers and turn it to a level that was just unholy.
Yeah.
And enjoy it, like, consume it. So, and yeah. So there's that. I'm really excited about that being in my life again, because I don't know if I've told you this, but for the longest time throughout my life, I've always, we as kids always knew that there were going to be 9 movies. All right. So the first 3 come, and then George goes into seclusion. Right. And then lo and behold, late 90s comes along and he says, "Hey, guess what, folks? I'm going to do it. I'm self-funding it. You've bought all the lunch boxes. I've taken all that money and I'm going to build a sound studio and we're going to do this. We're going to make my own Star Wars prequels." He goes ahead and he does it. And then I'm thinking to myself, all right, so now we got 3 more to finish off the trilogy. Irrational thought enters my brain. What happens in my life when there's no more Star Wars? There's no more war in the stars. Like, what the hell am I going to do? So I'm thinking morbidly, there's a portion of my brain that's kind of going, well, that's it. That time can end at that point. The anarchy, like the apocalypse can begin. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then Disney acquire it, and then they come on with those 3, and I eagerly, that I was excited to even go see Rise of Skywalker, despite all,
for sure.
You know what I mean? And we tried to like it. We did everything we could to be fans of the movie, right? And here's the thing. At the end of it, I was just like, darn it, now what? And then the whisperings and, Mandalorian and whatnot. And obviously Star Wars survives. Disney likes printing money. If anything, right now, the franchise is in better shape than ever in the history of mankind. And we get all the Star Wars stories. So I knew that once Disney got control of it, that it's going to become a resource, whether or not it's good or what I want it to be. It's not important. But it's interesting now to have it back in my life in such a prevalent way.
No, I totally get it, man. It's kind of weird, right? Like how we consume content now, and now Star Wars is just like, in my opinion, always going to be around. There's always going to be something Star Wars, some new content coming out about Star Wars, basically until Disney Plus ceases to exist.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing. And the same with the MCU, right? Like I feel like the DCEU is just really beginning in earnest. Where it's like
we'll talk about that in a second. In a second, but yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, I see, even with the MCU, I don't think Hawkeye performed as well as they wanted it to. I don't think that they got as much buzz as they wanted it to. And it kind of suffered. And I feel like Book of Boba Fett got off to that little bit of a stumble. And it's falling into that pattern too. But I could argue that we could feel it a little bit. I don't know about you, but I can definitely say I was stoked for WandaVision. I was pretty happy with Falcon and Winter Soldier because it was right down the lane on what I thought it was going to be. Loki kind of had good and bad moments for me. Like, I could feel myself like, do I have to wake up and watch Loki, or is it something that I just avoid the internet for today? And that's not a bad thing, right? And then it's just like, okay, I'll watch Loki in the evening, and I go, that episode really missed on me, but other ones hit. It's an interesting spot what they're doing. They're trying stuff, and yet again, seemingly they follow the same formula, so they're not even trying that much. So it's such a bizarre spot right now for a lot of content, and also these shortened seasons. 6 and 7 episodes versus a full 10, that type of thing, because of COVID. Like, let's not fool ourselves what that's all about, right?
No, that's exactly it, right? I think you said it best, right? Like, there's, for better or for worse, COVID has kind of put us in this weird situation in terms of content and the content and how we consume content, and it's for sure going to be changing. Like, who knows what theaters are going to look like? Who knows what the streaming service and the deals are going to look like? It's crazy to think. I was seeing this thing on Facebook actually recently about how we lived in a world where the only way that you can watch something is to go to the theaters. And then you had to basically forget about it for the next 8 months, because 8 months was the earliest that something would appear on VHS.
Yep. It's crazy. Or, back in my day, we had laser discs, right? Like, That was the most insane thing when a friend of mine bought a Laserdisc player and had like The Empire Strikes Back on a widescreen TV of all things. He had thousands of dollars twisted up into this home theater setup, and it was what I decided I wanted as a kid. I was like, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
And then when I went to buy my Laserdisc player, DVD players came out, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy that one. Just give me the DVD. Come on. But
Well,
yeah, it's amazing to
Laserdiscs
think
had
that
some
that gap was
major
huge.
limitations in terms of storage, right? Like, what was it? Half
Yeah,
an
you had to
hour?
flip them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to flip them.
Half an hour aside.
And movies like Empire Strikes Back were like 4 or 5 laser discs,
Yep,
double
I
sided.
remember.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, but
And they made
that
you
was the
buy
highest
them
quality.
separately. They made you buy them separately. Like the entire movie didn't come in one package. You literally had to buy each of them separately.
Yeah, and you'd go to Consumers Distributing and either rent the VHS player or rent the Laserdisc player, then the accompanying movies and discs. And that was what a weekend was when I was a kid. It was like my parents would be like, we want to shut him up. And they didn't care. They let me watch anything. I remember when I was in public school watching Aliens
Yeah.
and just be like, oh my God, this is so awesome. I'm going to be sick. I love it. You know, that type of thing. I remember somebody put on Twitter, what was the scariest thing that you saw as a kid? And I remember they were like, what was the scariest scene that scarred you as a kid? And I'm like, Poltergeist, the whole freaking movie. Like that was one evening that was a week of sleep I lost going to see that movie as a kid in that loophole that we talked about, where you just had to have one kid that was 14 and you could all get into the AA movie. Yeah, not a good time. Or one adult with you and everybody was getting in. Poltergeist was AA. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that stuff doesn't happen now. There's so many warnings, but then the kids stream it. So,
Yep, exactly. Yeah, just crazy, right? Like, it's so going back to what I was saying, like, we had to wait 8 months. Now, like, sometimes it's simultaneous release. Sometimes you're gonna have to wait a couple weeks. With the Batman, for example, like you're gonna have to wait 3 weeks before it goes to digital. Like, it's just crazy.
yeah.
It's just
And
absolutely
then we're going to be
crazy.
waiting for Spider-Man, right? Like that's a gapped one, and it's a weird spot in Canada because the theater's closed in Ontario. So it's like everybody's talking about Spider-Man. I'm like, I don't know when the heck I'm going to get a chance to see it. Like when it hits digital, sure. But last week I did watch Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I watched it this past weekend. Let's talk about that. Ghostbusters Afterlife. That was a movie. Holy shit.
I got to be honest, I liked it.
Oh, I loved it.
This is the thing. I enjoyed it from beginning to end, and I'm like, I'm not sure if people generally liked it or not. I read some weird things about it, but I'm like, it landed hard with this nostalgia nerd here.
Dude.
Like, I was just like, I was in tears at the end of it. I enjoyed it so much.
Oh yeah. That last scene, that final battle. Oh, just beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just I really enjoyed that. But the entire movie was just like a big thank you to the fans, right?
Yeah.
I was talking.
It was the fan service that you love. Like,
yeah.
Man.
I was talking with Mike McGuire, the guy, the co-host, the guy that sits in the lead chair of Sunday Night's Main Event, the radio show. He's a huge Ghostbusters nerd. He is to Ghostbusters as Phil is to Star Wars.
Wow.
So yeah, we were talking about Ghostbusters actually on our podcast on Saturday night, and he was mentioning the amount of Easter eggs that they threw at us. And I've talked about this when I talk about wrestling, and I know I've talked about this on this show, that for me, and this is what the MCU does great, and this is what Ghostbusters did fantastic, and that's the fan service, and as a kind of like a thank you for those long-standing, long-time fans who have suffered through other Ghostbusters movies and stuff like that, right? It was kind of like a thank you for being a fan for 30-plus years, right? For 37, 38 years, right? Like, it's just absolutely awesome. No, the movie was great, right? And the fact that they keep the door open for future movies was great too. But honestly, like if you're new to Ghostbusters, go and watch it. If you're a
Yeah,
fan
it's a
of the
great movie.
first two, go and watch it. It is just a really well done movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know what? Even that third reboot didn't strike me like I know the controversy around it, but it actually was an okay movie for
It was
me.
all
But
right.
I laughed all the way through it. So this was way better for me, being a big fan of especially the first movie. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Like that was a cultural phenomenon from the 80s. And seeing this one and have it feel just as comfortable as that one. And that was just like, you know what? I just had perma-smile the whole time. I told my friends, and I'm just like, you guys need to watch it. Like, you are seriously going to have a good night
Oh yeah.
watching this.
Oh yeah.
And
100%.
yeah.
100%. It's just a good movie. I just go out and watch it. You know what's not a good movie though, Phil?
Uh-oh. What?
Resident Evil.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Which one?
The new one. The new one.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I didn't even know there was a new one.
It's poopy. It's really poopy.
Is Mila in it or whatever her name is?
No, it's a reboot. It's a reboot.
Oh,
they tried
my
to make it
goodness.
seem more like the video games, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. I can send you a link. I'll send you a link after.
Yeah. What's interesting about this particular movie, and I don't play the video games very much. Like I've got a couple of them. Don't really play the games, right? For some reason, and I don't even like horror that much. I'm not a big horror guy. You know that.
Horror.
I don't like it. I don't like the scary stuff. Not a big fan. I collected all of the movies of Resident Evil because for some reason, this is what it was. In the first movie of the series, they filmed it in the building I worked in. Downtown Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
In all of the cutscenes, I could see where I worked. So I watched that stupid movie because it was the T-Masters in front and everything. Yeah. It was all in the building that I worked in at the time. So then I started becoming a fan of that brand because I'm just like, it just grew on me, right? And I'm like, this is not what I should be watching. Like, this is weird stuff. And I got into the whole apocalyptic vibe of the thing near the end and just everything being messed up. So this is interesting. I will have to check it out just to see, because that first one was equally terrible for the Mila Djokovic.
Oh, this one is 10 times worse than that one.
Oh, wow. I'm going to look forward to that. That might be let's drink something and watch it night.
Yeah, it's a good like Thursday night thing, right? So you can just kind of coast through Friday. That's usually what I watch. You know, it's funny. It's the reason why I say that, Phil, is because I'm actually reserving Thursday nights for stuff that I don't like now. That way,
interesting.
I just punched the mic, which punched me. That way, you know, I don't ruin the weekend. I'll ruin the pre-weekend, but I don't ruin the weekend.
That's a good point.
By watching something stupid.
That's a really good point. Maybe that's going to become my kind of go-to. If I think something's suspect, it might get queued up for a Thursday. Like, hell, if it's good, I'm going to be like, Friday's awesome. If it's bad, Friday's here.
Yep. And then exactly. It's like, tomorrow I'm going to watch something good. If today was Thursday, you know, it's just pretending that we're watching something shit. And Monday. It's like, oh, hey. Now, Sunday, though, is not a good day to watch something shit because it's like, I just wasted my last night off to watch this shit.
Yeah. No, that's been part of the quandary that I have with taking gambles on anything on the weekend. I try to play it safe because otherwise I just end up being mad. Like this past Sunday, what I did, or maybe it was Saturday, the days all melt into one. I started building Lego again. I stopped for a year.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't stop buying it, but I stopped building it. And I'm like, you know what? Kind of want that Book of Boba Fett figure. Kind of want the new Slave One / Boba Fett ship. So I'm building Boba Fett spaceship now. I don't know what it's called anymore. Oh, you're just gonna feed that Star Wars fan rage.
I know, right?
But yeah, it's just you got to pick stuff that you're gonna. I knew I was gonna enjoy building again. I knew all that, but I was just like, it's Saturday night. I want to feel good. Want to, sit there and say I did something this weekend. What'd you do? Built some Lego.
Yeah. I have a few things to build myself. I have a TIE fighter to build. And Phil,
Yes.
I bought something else. I bought some more Lego. I have
I know you
no idea where I'm gonna put any of this shit.
You bought the Batmobile.
Yes, I
I
did.
saw you building that.
66 Batmobile. I bought that. Well, I bought that on air last year. I finally built it on Christmas Day because I promised my nephews that I would build it with them, and I did that.
That's a good set.
Yeah, it's nice. It's small. Now, I tend to stick to the Bat stuff minus the TIE Fighter because the TIE Fighter's cool. But I bought something else, Phil.
Oh no. What did you buy?
It's another Batmobile.
Did you buy the tumbler?
No, I didn't buy the tumbler. I bought the Batman Batmobile, the new one.
Yeah, I saw it in the store. I was going to tell you.
Yep. Bought it off of the Le Amazon because Le Walmart has nothing.
Wow. I saw it in Walmart. I saw it a couple
it's all sold
times.
out. It's all sold out.
Yeah. I figured the tumbler was going to be the seller, but I should have known that one. I was going to pick it up just to have it. And you know how you get those speculation buys.
Yeah.
I'm like, I bet you that's going to be a hot toy. But I'm not the kind of guy that's going to flip it. So I'm like, this is going to sit in the pile. I'm like, I got a tumbler down there in the pile. It's just, damn it. I'm running out of space. I know the feeling. I'm like,
honestly, you know what I've done? So I have two Batmobiles, right? I have the regular Batmobile and then I have the 66 Batmobile. I just put them back in the box and put the box away. Like I just have zero place to put them right now. It is crazy. So I got to figure that out. I still want the Batwing so badly.
You got to hurry on that one. That one's going to be pinchy time soon. Like that's going to be end of life.
I know. It's been out almost a year, right? So we're getting to that point.
Yep, 1 year, Lego, all bets are off. If that thing isn't cooking like hotcakes, Lego acts it. They're just merciless on that.
Yeah.
I've only seen them ever bring back old sets once. So they went back and they said, the sales were too good on this. We shouldn't have cut it off. And they brought back Ship in a Bottle and the Saturn V rocket.
Yeah.
So,
but those are classics, right?
They should be, but here's the thing, right? I hate to say it. There's an economics to all this, but the minute they discontinue a set is the minute that thing skyrockets. Better than gold. It's just like, if you look at with the controversy about what's going on with Slave One right now, I've got the Slave One UCS still in brand new in box. It's actually the last box made by Lego that doesn't have the Disney logo on it. That's how old that thing is. It was in production for a long time because it's sold.
Yeah.
So what's happened though is because it says Slave One and the new one says Boba Fett spaceship, it's now climbed over $1,000. And I'm like, it went from 250 Canadian to 1,000 in the aftermarket right now. It might just be a blip, might just be, a bubble, so to speak, but it's weird, man. It is weird. It makes me afraid to ever crack that open now.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to appreciate, right? Because there's only so many boxes of them out there. And as people open them and build them, there's lots of boxes. So it's interesting. Collecting. I hate it.
Yeah.
Ooh,
totally get that. Lego, hell of a thing, Lego. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, we were talking about Ghostbusters, talking about Lego and shit that I've built.
Talking about Resident Evil,
how shite that is. Yeah, I still need to watch
DC.
Arcane.
Oh,
That's something I still need to
watched
do.
an episode. Yeah.
What did you think?
I liked it. I just watched one episode. I liked it. It's just it was about 40 minutes. It's a bit more of a time investment than I
Yeah.
generally have to get to know a whole new universe, but it seemed to be pretty consistent. And the one thing, I don't know the lady's name, but Avasarala from The Expanse, who has a very distinct, she's an Indian woman with a very distinct raspy voice. She voices a character in it. So instantly I'm just like, it's legit. Like Avasarala's in it. Like, come on, man. So I'm it's not bad. It's not a bad show. It's well produced, well voiced.
Yep.
So yeah. And that's been kicking my butt too, because on Fridays The Expanse comes out. So I'm down to, I guess this Friday is the last episode.
Yeah.
And then that's done.
Yep, exactly. The new season of Dexter finished yesterday. Still need to watch that. You know what's coming out soon?
What's that?
Snowpiercer.
Peacemaker.
Yes, Peacemaker.
Snowpiercer? Oh! Interesting.
Yep.
I don't know. Did you ever finish season 2?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to feel with no Melanie.
She'll be there. Just calm down. She'll be there.
I figured as much. Like it was a bit open ended, but I'm like, I don't feel. But I found that the episodes where she was on her little sabbatical to go to the north, the thing to save everybody. Some of those episodes didn't have her glue holding it together.
Yes,
and I'm like, and I know that was intentional. I know that they were trying to orchestrate chaos, and Mr. Wilford was expediting that. That was his plan, but it was affecting my viewing pleasure because of so much chaos. Right? I'm like, oh no, this is all becoming very high school.
Yep. So
very dramatic.
Yep. So we have Snowpiercer on the 24th. That's on TNT in the USA, Netflix on Canada. We have Peacemaker coming up this week. I may or may not have the first 2 episodes to watch, to review. So we'll be talking about that next week here on the show. And then, man, there's the Cobra Kai. Are you into Cobra Kai? I know Tyler is not whatsoever.
I watched the first season when it was YouTube.
Yep.
And it's not like I'm trying to avoid it, but I just haven't been able to put it together.
Yeah.
I just haven't picked it back up. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Season 4, I tried so hard to watch it over a few days, which I did manage to do so unintentionally. But it was just such a good season. It's one of those shows where this is an issue that a lot of shows that has children have, right? Like it's just children age. It's your classic. It's your classic issue, your Home Improvements, your Full House issues, right? PSRP, Bob Saget. Yeah. Kids are growing up very fast, right? So, and this show takes place in a short amount of time, so it's just starting to become a little crazy in that sense. But hopefully they do a time jump in this next season, but we'll see what actually ends up happening. Man,
it's the Stranger Things problem. They're getting older. They're getting awkward.
Yes. They are.
They're not kids anymore. They're gangly, buckets of teeth and facial hair.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know why I'm saying I know why I'm saying a lot this episode, but here we are. Fraggle Rock. Mm-hmm. That's been making a lot of news the past couple weeks.
Yep, coming January 12th. Apple TV Plus.
January 21st.
January 21st. Okay, 21st. Got the switch around going in my mind. I was hopeful for the 12th. 21st. Hey, it's fun to have something back. I don't know that. I'll be honest. Like some of the material that they've released, they've really messed around with Moki. All right. She does not have any semblance. Well, she has a bit of a semblance to the old Moki. Now, if you don't remember who Moki is, for those uninitiated or possibly who have forgotten their Fraggle lore, Moki was kind of the peace, love, hippie lady. She was kind of like the one that always you thought if there's somebody experimenting on drugs and it's not red, it's probably Moki, right? So she's a fun character because she's actually reflective of a personality type, as they all are. But I think they've tinkered with it. So we'll see what happens. Like, I'm open to it too. Like, I'm not complaining. But the internet is the internet. And I know that there's this army of Moki fans. And they might not, vibe well with the new incarnation. Maybe the new incarnation will hold a lot to the old. I don't know. It's just yet to be seen. So to be determined.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Hopefully it's good. I have high hopes for it, to be honest. I'm a fan of the Fraggle Rock.
Yeah.
I think anyone who grew up in Canada has probably watched Fraggle Rock and they don't remember it or know it.
Yeah, it was a staple on CBC. Like,
Yep.
CBC helped co-produce it. I know that it aired in the States on HBO, but here in Canada, it was pretty much made here in Toronto and like filmed at CBC Studios, or had a lot of production help from them. And God bless them. They put it on like it was candy for us. So they entertained a lot of my younger years. To be honest, though, I was a little bit older than I should have been to watch Fraggle Rock, but I was a Muppet fan. So
yeah,
what can you do?
Exactly. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
You like what you like. Honestly, that's the number one thing that I learned. I have so many regrets when it comes to my nerdisms, right? Like, now it's all good to be a nerd, right? It's all hip. It's all cool. Say what you want about the show. Big Bang Theory really helped it make nerd mainstream, but say what you want about that show. But you and I, more you, less I, but both of us, we kind of grew up in an age where you were not cool. You were kind of seen down. You were looked down upon if you were kind of considered yourself a nerd and watched nerdy stuff, right? Like reading comic books, liking superheroes, playing video games and stuff like that.
Even back then, the superheroes weren't super prevalent unless you were a comic geek, right? Then that superheroes were creeping in, though, because you had stuff like the X-Men cartoon. You had stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that were all very heavily comic based. So, and you had Justice League, things like that. So comics were definitely penetrating the Saturday morning cartoon space really well, but they weren't strong in the toy game. And that's where things like G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Transformers, at least for boy toys, and He-Man, like those things had really strong, because they were driven by toys for the show, right? And say what you will about Star Wars, I swear the only reason why we get characters like Boba Fett and whatnot is because they make awesome toys. So it really is a market where that was driving a lot of the excitement in the kids. But yeah, if you wore it on your sleeve too much, man, you're screwed.
Yep.
And you're naive enough like me that I would just be like, I really like the Fraggles and I'm going to make my own radio show and record it on cassette and bring it in for the teacher. And yeah, it's a lot of pain.
Yep. Agreed 100%. Yeah, it's it is what it is there, but it's kind of funny, right? Like going back, it's like I really wish I picked this stuff up early. I really wish I started podcasting earlier. Like I started podcasting when I was how old was I? 29? Yeah, I was 29 when I started podcasting, right? Like I kind of wish I started earlier. Kind of wish I was, got into gaming and online streaming and that stuff a little earlier. I wonder what my life would be like if I started all that earlier. But here I am, like mid to late 30s.
Aren't most of the streamers like quitting and like they hate the industry? And
oh yeah,
like
100%.
They're all like, it's so fake and we're burning out, and like it's all an act, and they're getting caught being real people doing real drama in their lives and losing contracts, and it just sounds like hell.
A lot of these people are idiots, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
It's like, morality clauses are a hell of a thing. Don't be stupid.
Yeah, we'll just try to be a decent person. Like, it's
Crazy concept.
shouldn't be that hard. But apparently it is.
But hey, it's sometimes it's hard to tell people the truth. Sometimes it's hard not to be a dick. Sometimes it's hard, It's people are funny beings, to say the least.
Yeah, well, I ran into some funny beings on the Forza Horizon 5 tour on the weekend, and they learned how I drive around people who are being idiots. I'm doing way more online stuff on that game than I ever have thought I would.
Yeah.
So just be forewarned. 13-year-olds.
I love it.
15 million of you.
Right. It's just crazy how many people play online.
Surly old man coming at you. Watch where you drive your BMW M5. You may think we're on the same team, but we're not.
I love it. I feel like I'm really straining my voice today. I don't know what it is.
You're out of practice.
I've been talking all week.
You're way more in practice. Yeah, I know. You're way more in practice than
it just feels like I'm
brother.
really straining myself talking into the mic right now. So that's why I keep pausing and looking at my settings. I'm like, no, it's like, the gain isn't high, the gain's fine. The nose gate, which kind of like silences outside noise and stuff, is not at a level that like where I have to scream into the mic. Sorry.
You
Sorry for all
sneezed off mic and I didn't hear it.
Exactly. It was a cough. Because like I say, I feel like I'm really straining my throat, and I'm sorry for all the ums and pauses. It's like we are literally making this up as we go.
Welcome to my week. Every week.
It's just something that I catch myself doing now, and the other thing that I'm noticing more of is like I find myself saying certain words in an episode, whether it be this show or another show, and I really try to notice what I'm saying before I say it. So it's like, I'm there's these small things that I'm really trying now as I'm trying to kind of up my game, considering that, I'm going to be on radio a lot more.
Yes. It is something I think one of the people, whenever we have a guest on who's accomplished at speaking, I noticed that with them. I think the person that it drove the biggest impact on me in the past while that we've been doing this was Fearless Fred. So
how so? What do you mean
for
by
a
that?
guy who was driving home in his car talking to us on his cell phone? He was incredibly well put together. He was enunciated clearly. He sounded like when I listened to him on the radio.
Yeah.
And one thing you don't hear Fred doing is saying or repeating phrases or, any of these things that we're self-critical about. Fred doesn't do that. Fred's clear, concise. It's almost like he's reading from a script, but he's very personable. He knows how to deliver a line and talk. I think the one thing that he mentioned to me was you don't talk to the mic, you talk through the mic.
Yep.
And that was something that I had to knuckle down on for a couple days where I'm like, interesting, because that's a perspective thing. That's you know what I mean? Like you really have to think about it when you're doing this type of thing. And I know that I made some changes. I'm not perfect. I'm continually trying to evolve my own self. But I know that there was a time at which you came to me and you said, Phil, I feel like you're a podcaster now. Like you were and it was after that. And I'm just like, okay, well, I took some lessons and gave myself a little bit of a hard time about things. Am I still making mistakes? Hell yes, I'm going to. And I'm trying to avoid those same traps. I'm more diligent about it now than I was.
Yeah.
So
see, we fall in this weird little place because we're not radio. This is not a radio polished show. This is a podcast. There's a big difference between a podcast and a radio show. A podcast is more of a casual conversation, right? A radio show is formatted in very, very direct conversations where you're broadcasting them, right? And you're very specific to a certain extent. podcasting is more of a conversation. That's at least what I try to do in whatever podcast I'm on. It's more of a conversation. Whereas in the radio stuff, I try to spit out facts, get to the point very fast, spit out facts.
Yes.
We don't have time to dick around, right? We have to get to the point, essentially.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the one thing that when I listen to Fearless Fred or any other radio personality that I find personable, they have to balance that. They're economical with their time and their delivery, but they're still letting you know who they are as people. Right? And I feel that that's something that podcasts lean a little bit more towards. You're going to be you, and maybe a little less direct. Whereas broadcasting on radio is more that other way. Right. But you can also take it completely like news radio and just blast the news.
Yeah. And and we've toyed around with the various formats. We're still playing around with what works best. Yeah. Right.
Big time.
There are days where I'm just like, you know what? Let's have a conversation. Let's have some things that we want to touch on, but let's have it more conversational. Kind of like this has been your week in geek, as opposed to, CP24. CP24, for those people who don't know, it's a all news channel, but it's a very casual all news channel. It's not CNN quality. It is like, very bare bones news. Anyways, it's so we're still playing around with exactly what we want to do, right? And honestly, this is why I always ask people who I know who listen to this show, any listeners who want to send in feedback, please send it in. Like, what type of show do you guys want? When I look at the numbers, it seems to be you guys want the conversations. When I take a look at the numbers, it seems like episodes like today's episode is going to get a lot of listens because you get us. You get Boris and Phil. And if Tyler were here, you'd get Tyler, right? You kind of get the real us. Not that we're putting on a character or anything, but I find that when we're all business, we're all business, right? I'm still trying to find kind of like that middle, seeing what works. But I've go ahead. I've taken to this thing lately. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I try to reveal more about my personal self, about not an idea that I had, but maybe an experience I had growing up, like talking about laser discs or talking about making those radio recordings on tape. Something that makes me a little more vulnerable. Something that I'm willing to share with the audience. Yeah. So I'm trying to do that a little bit more because I figure people respond to that because that's actually who I am. I got in shit for that, or I got exposed for that, where people were like, haha, you did that, geek. Yeah.
That type of thing. So.
Well, that was exactly it, right? Like, for me, like, I kind of, you know me, but I'm an open book for the most part, right? Like, and that's kind of bitten me in the ass at times in my life. The reason why I stopped being RPP president was because of that. So I've kind of like taken a step back, and I'm kind of like in the middle. Like, I try to do what you say, try to tell stories, try to get, as I talk about stuff on this show, when I'm kind of not like leading the conversation, I always try and adding to the conversation. I always try to, add that little personal touch to it. But that's what I mean, right? That's podcasting. You can do that with podcasting. With radio, it's a lot harder to do that, right? So, but again, it's just, trying to find whatever works. And again, I will say, I just send us feedback. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We make a lot of assumptions. If you haven't noticed, we've been talking a lot less about hardcore tech news because we've noticed that those episodes kind of don't do as well.
Yeah, and as well, it's been a weird news cycle. I don't know. The world's getting sick and tired of hearing about some of that stuff. But one of the things, I don't know if you want to do the DC story now or if we want to talk about the big Boba Fett in the room. So
okay, so let's talk about DC. Let's talk DC.
Yeah.
We'll always end the show with whatever the big show is that we're watching at any given time. And right now, it seems to be Boba Fett. So we'll talk about some DC stuff. And this kind of goes in the same vein. Boba Fett. In the same vein of Boba Fett. In the same vein of, the whole Boba. The same vein as the same vein. I'm not even gonna edit this at this point. Going back, the multiverse. Okay, so
yes,
DC over the weekend there's have been a lot of rumors and innuendo, kind of about the Flash, and we kind of knew that this was gonna happen. So I don't know why people are shocked, but people all of a sudden are now reacting, right? And it is how Ben Affleck has come out and said that the Flash is going to be the last time he dons the cape. I don't know why anyone is shocked about this. People gave him so much shit when he was announced as Batman, if you recall. So the guy has also been given a really tough role because he's been given really shit movies to star in. So, Ben Affleck's last movie as Batman. There's been a lot of talk about the Flash and this being the Flashpoint, and kind of, in the comics, the Flashpoint comics was the major event that rebooted the entire DC universe, and we got the New 52 out of it. So there's a lot of speculation, rumors, and innuendo that this will do the same with the DC movie franchise, the DC extended universe, whatever you want to call it. And the Flash is essentially going to set things right. Or wrong, it depends how you want to look at it, but essentially the Snyderverse is going to be erased. There's been people trying to debunk this, but at the end of the day, the Flash is going to be a major step for DC movies. I don't know, honestly, what's to come from this. I don't know how I feel about any of this, but expect major changes after the Flash.
Yeah, I think that we have to let it get to screen. Whatever version of that movie that they're working on now, maybe that's the direction. What the version is that ends up being the one that we consume, I don't know that it is. I don't know if we're into another Snyderverse thing where it's like, oh, there's a Snyder cut floating around where, this happens.
Yeah.
I don't know, because DC have put themselves in this situation, and it is an opportunity to get it rectified. And I can't blame them for wanting to do it. My only hope as a geek, as a fan of these types of movies, is that they have a plan going forward. That's all that I ask. Whether it be Zack Snyder, whether it be someone else, it just has to have a plan. I think, honestly, just from what I'm hearing about Peacemaker, from what I saw with Suicide Squad, call up James Gunn and give him the keys to the DC universe. Go make us money now and make us laugh while doing it.
Yeah.
I just feel that's probably the safest bet, if we're into a singularity world of somebody's got to fix this crap.
Yeah.
So, I'm still hostile and angry over Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe that's been a year already since we watched that shit. I can't believe that I watched Tenet the same day. That was a bad day of movie watching. That was Christmas Day last year. 2 years ago, I guess. 2020.
Stinkerville, man.
Yep. In the morning, I watched Tenet, and then I watched Wonder Woman, and then at night, I ended up watching Spirit, or whatever that Disney one was called. The ghost one, the jazz one.
Oh, yeah, Spirited Away or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever it was called.
Whatever.
Someone's yelling at us right now. Yeah, that one.
Oh, I can hear the internet erupt. It was that really sweet Pixar movie.
Exactly. It was a good movie. We're not saying it's just we forget the title. We watch so much. Phil, do you know how much wrestling I watched last week? And I hate myself for even knowing for doing this. Because here's the thing.
I never know how much wrestling you watch, Boris. I never know. But from the looks of it, it looks like it's probably about 17 hours a week, man.
On a normal week, okay, let me see. It is about, I usually watch SmackDown. I usually watch NXT. That's 4 hours plus Dynamite. That's 6 hours. Usually Rampage, that's about 7 hours. Let's say 8 hours a week is typically what I do. 10 hours. Let's say 10 hours a week.
Oof.
You know, last week, the new year seems to be like the big, let's do big shows everywhere in the world, in Japan, in North America, and in between. I've done 30 plus hours, 32, 33 hours of wrestling last week.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I can't even sit through an hour of wrestling.
You know what the funny part is, Phil?
What?
I shouldn't be saying this, but you know, I know how to watch it. I know how to consume it, and I do love aspects of it. You know exactly where I'm going with this.
Yep.
You know, I can talk about it, I can write about it, I can speculate about it, I can analyze it and make it entertaining, but you know, there's just certain things about it that I just cannot effing stand whatsoever.
I could totally see that.
But it's like nerd stuff, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's the same as nerd stuff.
There's a comfort zone within its boundaries. You can exist within those boundaries, but it doesn't mean you have to like it all the time. There may be aspects that drive you crazy, but there's a comfort zone with it. That's the way I relate to Star Wars. Like I say, even bad Star Wars is good. It's like pizza.
Exactly, like pizza. And kind of like, you know, on Sunday night's main event, and I've been actually saying this a little more here just because of all the shit the three of us consume. Between the three of us, we watch very different stuff, but it's kind of funny because we also watch the same stuff, but we have different views on it. And that's why I love our Christmas shows, just because that really shows. Anyways, I haven't, yeah. It's just, yeah. You know, we watch these things so you don't have to.
All I can say is I think Tyler's got to go back and rewatch Pig. And it was his pick.
I know.
And I'm like, I felt like I opened up a can of whoop ass on that episode. And I wasn't meaning to. And I did not look on the internet.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was the longest month of me sitting on Pig, cooking all kinds of internal feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie was something.
It was a lot more than I thought
Tyler gives us. The stuff Tyler gives us to watch both years.
Yeah, Suicide Cult last year. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yes, Suicide Cult. I forget what the movie was called, but it was good. But it was just like heavy.
Yeah,
it was
really good. But at the end of it, the Jim Henson was let's pull out the razor blades. Oh man, good times.
Great times, man. Honestly, it's always good times. And this year's going to be so interesting here. I kind of like our Monday recordings. I like that we've gone back to Monday recordings. Gives us the weekend to watch bullshit. Especially now that, like, I feel a lot less pressure that the Disney stuff is on Wednesdays, right? We don't have to rush to watch anything.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to make special recordings. We can if we want to, but kind of gives us a little more leeway into content and picking out what we want to talk about. Because like we're trying to do like, you know, 3 or 4 big subjects a week, and then, you know, whatever we're watching. And then I always like leaving at least 20 to 30 minutes at the start of the show to kind of like, you know, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's a good format. I hope we stick with it, but yeah. It's kind of been nice that it hasn't been too spoilery on the internet. People are respecting the Wednesday releases. So it was much more difficult on a Friday night when people would get the show, they'd get excited, and then they felt like they had to bite back the entire weekend. Right now, we're pretty strongly adhering to you can watch it on Wednesday. You can watch it all the way through there. But you're going to be quiet about it basically until the Monday. So most people are doing that. On the weekend, it gets a bit creaky, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a little something. It's a little something on the weekend. But I think overall people are doing well. And like I say, it gives us a little leeway in terms of when we do stuff and what we talk about. Anyways, speaking of it, Phil, do you want to take over? Do you want to lead this convo?
Yeah, we got our second episode, chapter 2 in the book of Boba Fett. Was it the tribes of Tatooine? So I expressed some hesitation last week with the first episode. I was a little bit wary about the Sand People storyline for me personally, or the Tusken Raiders, and more excited to be in the present day. However, this episode was a little bit shocking in a few aspects, like how much I enjoyed the whole Boba Fett issues with the Sand People.
Yeah.
Because that they basically accelerated. They did a lot of progression in that very quickly.
Yeah.
I was worried that it was going to be languishing in the buildup of respect, but respect was given quickly, thus allowing the story to move more aggressively towards where we all want it to be, I think. And yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of Easter eggs in this episode. Like a lot.
Tons.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What did you think of the first episode, and what did you think of this episode? Your general feelings.
So the first episode, I feel like they were trying to do too much. I feel like it should have just been longer. I feel like while the concepts were good, I feel that it was just too short and they were trying to do too much in too little of time. I believe that entire episode could have been stretched at least one more episode, and it would have been a lot better. I believe that just the back and forth of time was interesting, but it was also, I feel like this episode number 2, kind of did a great job of explaining how he got from almost getting killed to where he is now, and kind of what his inspirations were, and kind of why he's the way he is, and why he's changed, and why his motivations are the way that they are, and why he's aligned himself with certain people. I feel like they've kind of done a good job of kind of going back now and explaining that. But as the first episode was kind of going on, you were kind of like, this is a very different Boba Fett than what we're used to, what we thought in our head. Because I kind of feel like he's this mystical character where we've always been able to make assumptions about him. But because he's barely gotten screen time until now we're actually seeing him for what he is, right? So our assumptions of him may be incorrect. So we're kind of crapping on the show because of it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Like, my big hang-ups on the first show were I was really disappointed by some of the action.
Yeah.
But that being said, we do have a lot of time stuff happening here. So Tamara Morrison, or Boba Fett, didn't know how to kick ass at that point. I get that, but even in the present day stuff, it was a little bit lacking on that front. That was my major objection. That and the pacing of the episode. I thought, if anything, the opposite of you. I thought it was paced way too slow. So I felt like when you watch episode 1 and episode 2 in a cohesive chain, episode 2 makes episode 1 better. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So,
and this is similar to Hawkeye, right? Episode 1 just seemed a little different, seemed a little weird. Episode 2 kind of, okay, now I see where they're going with this. Now I see why they did these things in the first episode. Similar to Hawkeye, that's how I felt about Boba Fett. That, again, that's what I meant about now you see his inspiration for where he is today.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I felt like, for me personally, coming into this week's episode 2, I felt like I can be really excited now. I had a lot of trepidation with the first episode. I knew they were going to deliver on it. It's Dave and John. Like, you can't mess this up at this point. Like, they if they would have messed up, it would have been Mandalorian season 2. Right. And And this one, I'm just like, okay, it's going to become the home run for at least me. Maybe not everybody, and that's fair. But for myself, I'm like, guess what? And this week brought that in spades, as far as I'm concerned. Because what we've got here is, Boba Fett brings the what is it, the Night Wind guy, the assassin. He brings him back to the mayor. The mayor and him have this little back and forth. And then we go outside and the mayor's just sitting on something. He's like, yeah, you should go to the bar. Check out the bar. He goes to the bar. He calls them on their bullcrap. And then what do? You hear the drum. You see Max Rebo and everybody stop playing instruments. And lo and behold, what's coming down the main dust street outside is not one, but two huts on being carried by their entourage, who struggled mightily under the weight of these slugs. They're cousins of Jabba. And yeah, I'm like, instantly it got, at least for me, I'm like, Dave and John are swinging for the fences now. Like they're bringing their A game. They reached into the Star Wars bag and they pulled out a trick that they know is going to work. So instantly I'm excited. And then lo and behold, what happens with that confrontation is they turn around, and this is probably one of the weirdest deep cut nerdisms I've seen in Star Wars. But I'm also happy that they did it. And that is, they pulled a comic book character out from Dr. Aphra and Darth Vader. And that is a big Wookiee called Black Krrsantan. BK. That's what we all call him. So anyhow, this is just a giant gladiator Wookiee. Apparently, he's got a lot of history with Boba Fett. He even has some history with Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine.
Yes.
So now we've got a possibility of someone that might show up in the Obi-Wan show, because he does have the scar. So it's interesting. I hate Wookiee names, by the way. Like, oh my God, KRRS. Like, oh,
no, even saying Kashyyyk, right? Like the first time you see Kashyyyk being spelled, is how the fuck do you say that?
Yeah, so I butchered it. I know I did, but I don't know that anybody knows to say it right. But anyhow, BK is just the way to go. And man, does that character ever look nasty? Like nasty in a good way. Like, I'm just like, oh, I can only imagine if that goes down, what that's going to be like. Like that's going to be the stuff that gilds new Star Wars fans, because they're going to be like, man, I'm going to, I want to play Boba against BK. I want to get the action figures. I want to play that out. So there's some excitement with that. And then we get into the Dances with Wolves. We're going to go back and talk about what's going on with these sand people and Boba Fett's relationship, and another deep Easter egg. And that was Tosche Station. That's the infamous Tosche Station that Luke Skywalker talks about. It's a deleted scene in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And in fact, the two characters were two characters that were cut, that didn't make the movie, that were in the deleted scene.
Yeah.
So apparently it's like Uncle Owen's cousins or something.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's just, there's so much of that, of deep cuts, and even to the point where the end part with the gaffy stick is actually the concept art of Ralph McQuarrie about how he envisioned sand people. Like it was an homage to the concept art, that half shielded, like the ship hull that they were building the gaffy stick in. That was from the concept art. So I'm just like holy cow, like this is a show done by fans for fans.
Yeah.
So and you don't need to know any of that to enjoy it. But I don't know about you, but
that's the thing right there, like, Phil. We've talked about this, and this is what I love, and I kind of was talking about this when we talked about Ghostbusters. We always talk about this when we talk about the MCU, and that's this show. Dave Filoni and company, they do a fantastic job of not only giving new people a good show to follow, but it gives us diehard fans who have been following this stuff for 40 plus years or however long you've been watching and reading and playing and whatever Star Wars stuff, it that deep cut appreciation and thank you, right? It's like the fan service that they do is just amazing, and I love it. But like we said, you don't have to be that diehard fan to enjoy it.
No, it's a perk. Like, it's nice to see it, but it doesn't affect, like, my friends who know nothing about Star Wars. They enjoyed the episode and they're like, that big Wookiee looks mean and stuff like that. I'm like, it's great. Like, the storytelling at the end for me, where Boba Fett goes from being very displayed as a kid who was basically orphaned as a child, had a rough life, wasn't really accepted into family, finally found family. And that whole thing with, it's obviously mirroring what's going on with his attempts in the new world
Yes.
to becoming a crime boss. Like, all that stuff is there for all of us to drink in with our eyes. But I just found that it was incredibly emotionally moving. Just the whole, they're dancing around the fire, unifying through a tradition that he's openly accepting. And just the music, like, everything was just beautifully done. I was just like, I know it's hokey and kind of cheesy, but it's kind of an emotional journey that you've gone through. And I'm like, I've watched it, like I say, about 5 times now, and I get a little bit misty at the end, and I can't figure out why. And I'm just like, it's damn good storytelling. They actually were able to take me on a journey and make me care about these people that I didn't care about even a week ago.
Yep, exactly.
I can't wait to get that Lego model of the train. And then the speculation, like, the Pikes are the people in the train moving the merchandise through.
Yeah.
The people, like the aliens that they had in Solo.
Yep.
And in Clone Wars.
Yep.
And I'm like, and they're heavily invested in crime syndicates, which, you know where this is going, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to find out that they basically go after the Sand People and create Boba Fett, the crime lord here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and guess who's sitting atop that throne in classic Disney Plus show style? Who's the big bad that was pulling the strings behind the Hutts, behind the mayor, behind all that? I'm guessing it's going to be Kira.
That's who I think it is.
From Solo.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's who I think it is.
I just think that there's too much. And I think we're going to get BK and Boba fighting in one episode. And guess who's going to win? BK is going to get his butt kicked. And then they're going to bring in, the Hutts are going to go and hire Cad Bane. And we're going to get a live action Cad Bane. I could be horribly wrong. I'm completely just throwing stuff out there because Dave and them have tipped their hands. They put Cad Bane in the Bad Batch.
Yep, exactly.
They've played some cards here. So I'm like, man, oh man, like, when you think back on The Mandalorian and you think back, everybody knew Ahsoka was going to be there. Everybody knew it. So when her scene comes, like when her shot comes up, we're all happy, but it's kind of feels anticlimactic. We're halfway through a season, and I guess that's the big reveal. And then what do? They whop us with Luke Skywalker at the end with Mark Hamill, right? Like, internet explodes. So now they've set the bar. And I'm thinking that bar is probably going to be Kira.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I don't like how the internet, we're having a Mephisto moment. The internet is having a huge Mephisto moment with this show because everyone just wants it to be Han Solo.
Yeah, and there's the rumors speculating that and all this kind of stuff. Like, look, I know Disney are good at the de-aging, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think that it's incredibly cliche if it's Harrison, if it's Han.
Yep.
Because I'm like, you know what? Like, that needs to stop. Kira represents a path forward with a character that's just starting to emerge in the comic books, just starting to become a player in the Star Wars universe again. And you have a a lot to mine from her, a lot to get from her. But if you go to Harrison Ford, we all know how Han dies. Like, we all know how Luke dies. We're telling stories in a time capsule. I'm like, that's lazy to me. That is a little beyond the pale. It was fun when it was Mark. It made sense that it was Mark. But I can't in any way see how Han Solo having some kind of revenge on Boba Fett at this point is,
Well, number one,
that I'm really interested in.
Han assumes he's dead. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? Like,
he went in the Sarlacc.
Yep.
You heard him.
Exactly.
Didn't see him.
Regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that it's a lot of internet wishful thinking.
I agree with you 100%. And I keep pressing the wrong buttons all the time. It's fucking funny. So it's a minor thing, but it's just so funny sometimes. But no, honestly, episode 2 was fantastic. I can't wait. Yeah, I love the fact that we record the show on Monday now. So there's only 2 nights before we can watch it.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited for this week. Dude, like, holy cow. Very excited. But anyhow, my keyboard's acting up like crazy right now. I don't know what's going on.
I think it's time, Phil, for us to call it an episode. But before we do, you should tell our listeners how they can get a hold of us.
I will certainly be able to do that. I can facilitate that because I've been on the sands of Tatooine. So, all right. That's my best Tamara Morrison impression. Our website, if you want to track us down on the internet, it's www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can shoot us a message or, anything, a DM, whatever, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at It's Canon Podcast. If you want to write us an email, you can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can subscribe via basically anywhere where you get podcasts. I'm not even going to read the list. If you found this podcast, you probably found a platform where we're on because we're on them all. So please be sure to subscribe and hit notifications for when we drop these episodes. And as well, leave a rate and review if at all possible on the platform. And hey, do something good for me. Tell a friend you're listening to the It's Canon Podcast show, and maybe they should too.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that, Phil. Tyler, I hope you're doing well. I hope everything is going well on your end. Hopefully next week the band can be back together so that we can give you the best and worst of 2021. I'm not even going to guarantee it at this point because you never know what the F is going to happen on Mondays. But without further ado, he's Phil. I'm Boris. You're listening to the It's Canon Podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things geek, all things nerd, and the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. Good night.